Hi, I'm Vincent Lambe, and today I'm here with the cast and crew of No Ghost in the Morgue, which is one of the live-action short films, which has qualified for Academy Award consideration this year. So great to have you here. If you want to just introduce yourself, we've got Marilyn. If you want to just give your name and role on the film.
Sure. So I'm Marilyn Cooke. I am the writer and director of No Ghost in the Morgue.
Hi, my name is
And
Schelby Jean-Baptiste, and I'm the lead actress.
excellent, right? Great to have you with us. So yeah, this it's quite an unusual film, really, isn't it? Like it's beautiful and poetic, like as well. You know, it's unusual to find a film in that world, like in that setting. You don't see many films set in a morgue, for example. But Marilyn, tell us a bit about about what the film is about, the story, and what it was that made you want to tell this story.
Sure. So the story is about Katie, who's played by Schelby, who is a medical student of Haitian descent, who wants to become a surgeon, just like her mother and her grandmother. That is until the day that she breaks under pressure during her first operation. That goes terribly wrong. And because of this, she is haunted by the failure of that first operation. And so she has to accept an internship at the morgue. And while she's there, she has to adjust to her new quirky colleagues, let's say it like that. And she starts having tropical daydreams of her deceased grandmother's spirit. So the film is basically about her trying to honor her legacy, her family legacy of accomplished surgeons, and just trying to find her way in the world at the same time. So yeah, and I think like you said, I think it is an unusual story, but I think I'm probably an unusual storyteller too.
Right. Yeah, it's
So
it's an interesting theme. It's not something you see every day. Like, and what was it that made you want to tell this? I mean, is this something like were you looking to tell something that focused on that theme? I mean, like honoring your family legacies and finding your place in the world. Is that something that you set out to do, or is it based on your own experience? It feels like quite a personal story.
it is and it isn't in a way, because I think I like to pack a lot of things in a single film. And for this one, it is a mix of a personal experience that I had with death, with somebody that was close to me who passed away. And I spoke to, like by chance, I spoke to the mortician who was taking care of that person's body. And the way that she spoke about like what she called was her patients was so human and so
Yeah.
compassionate, and there's so much care around it. And she really called them like Mr. This and Mrs. That, and like she said that
Right.
she would speak to them. So that really touched me like really deeply, and I think it really comforted me as well during that time, that oh, somebody's actually taking care of this person. And I got really fascinated by that, actually, by that whole world of like working with bodies, and how somebody gets into that in the first place. And I think it kind of coincided with me, rethinking my own life, and you know asking myself, like, am I going down the right path? Am I doing the right thing? This was just before I actually left my day job to try to make it full time as a writer director. So um yeah, so, and I know, like, in Caribbean culture, that's where my family is from. Part of my family is from. It's really important to like honor our parents or our elders who often had to immigrate and work hard to just to make it, like, in this country that we're in, that we had the chance to just be born in. So I think it is like, how it is something that we deal with, of like, how do we make the best choice for ourselves when we're kind of facing that internal pressure.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I wanted to talk about grandmothers too, so I added in the grandmother in there. And so it's like lots going
Right.
on.
Okay. So, like Shelby, right? So you play Katie in the film, who's the lead character in it. So tell us a bit about your character, what's going through her mind, and how you approached that role.
Well, like there was so many things. First of all, when I read the script, there were so many layers. There were so many directions that could be taken, right? And I think one of the things that really like took me not by surprise, but I really I was like, wow, was the fact that there were many powerful women in the movie, you know, like having that, like that tribe of beautiful, powerful Black women that are just trying to do their best in a way, because at the end of the day, even if she feels the pressure, it comes from a good place, you know, like from a grandmother, from a mother. So just for that, for me, it was amazing to have the chance to embody that and to present that on screen. And then I spoke a lot with Marilyn about the character, the direction she wanted to take, the fact that she's like struggling between listening to herself, knowing where exactly she wants to go, but at the same time honoring her grandmother and her mother, which can be very difficult, you know. And I found that it was really a good direction for many people, because at the end of the day, we're talking about like a Black woman that is going through that, but I do believe anyone can kind of like in a way relate to that pressure, or relate to that idea of like, okay, at this point in your life, you're supposed to have your things together and know the direction that you have to take, and might as well just honor whoever was there before you, you know. And seeing that character struggling and not knowing, and going, and then not feeling good, and then questioning herself, I think it's really powerful, beautiful, and real at the same time. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting character. Yeah. Interesting kind of theme on the whole thing. But it's also just an interesting setting, like in a morgue. You don't see something set in a morgue very often. Like, is that something that was important, like, to you? I mean, what was it that interests you about that setting?
Okay, I was like,
Well, either of you.
but it was super interesting. It was super. I'm gonna let Marilyn answer that question.
Well, you can answer if you want. Was there something specific about the morgue that interested you, that you wanted to, why you wanted to set it in this location?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, when I was writing this film was right in the middle of the pandemic. So I think like it was kind of a collective, I don't know how to, maybe, okay, let me start over. So I wrote this film at the beginning of the pandemic, and I think it was something of like a collective awakening for a lot of people around just death that I think we hadn't seen on that type of scale before. And I think like I just remember seeing those images of like, you know, the of people working as care workers during the pandemic, and it was very striking for me. And you know, I think it's something that I wanted to show, and that I wanted to show that there is dignity around it too, that, you know, a lot of people might think of it as this really creepy, like macabre place, you know, but I think that's what I found interesting about having these kind of quirky characters that work there, who are very like, there's the doctor who's very jovial and very bright and very funny, and there's the kind of
an interesting mix of kind of genres going on there, isn't there? Because you've got this dark comedy, and then it's also a drama, you know. It's some of it are quite serious, you know. So yeah, I mean, that was one of the things that kind of got me. Like, it's actually quite funny, like the characters in the morgue, the doctor.
Well, it was really important for me to show it, to show how, you know, that's the way kind of I see life as well. I don't like, even in dramatic moments, I find there is usually a way of finding lightness in the moment, you know. And I think that's why I wanted to have something very, very light in the tone. Like I didn't want it to be like very like dark and, you know, depressing, and creepy, and because I think life has a tendency to surprise us too, and to show us things when we least suspect it. So that's kind of why I think the film kind of follows that too, where I think it has a bit of an intriguing premise, but then you think you're stepping into something, but it ends up being something else. So
yeah, I think you got the balance really nice, like between those two genres. And like a lot of it, you know, like, so Katie, I think you have a lovely subtle performance in the film. and a lot of it is kind of played on your reaction to these characters in the morgue, and as you're kind of watching them, you know, go about their jobs, like in kind of, you know, quirky sort of way, you know. But you know, so but there is this kind of balance where you've got dark comedy and also drama. You know, how did you find playing that? I mean, did you find that challenging, working with two different genres?
That's really, seriously, that's really funny, because while playing it, I didn't feel that I was playing between these two, right? For me, it was just
Right.
like a story that we had to go through it, and at that moment, that was happening, and at that moment, this was happening. You know, like I never really questioned it that much. And then it's after that, because there's a movie that you know, like there's a script, then there's a movie that you do, and then there's the movie that you see on screen, right? And when I read it, there were like many I didn't quite see. I felt the little you know, the doctor, like, he's really funny and all that, but at the same time, it's really when we shot it that I was like, oh my god, it's so funny. Like, it's actually really, really funny, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
yeah, but like at first I was just like, oh, okay, he's like extra, I don't know, like he's like, he has like a personality, but I didn't quite understood how funny he was. And I just want to add up one thing. You know, one of the reason too that I decided to do it, that really like came, and I remember talking about it to Marilyn, was the fact that when my grandmother passed away 7 years ago, I'm the one who did her makeup and her hair. And that relationship that you have with the dead body, you know, that like she actually went through when the person really close to her passed away. I kind of like felt the same, you know. I was actually the person doing it. I was actually like having that connection with my grandmother. And even it's really special, because even if she passed away, I still felt that she was there. And I still felt that, like, that love, that compassion, and that like I needed to take care of her, right? And that's really something that I never really, you know, like mentioned to anybody. But when I read the script, I was like, wait a minute, like I actually went through it in a way, and now I'm like having that opportunity to embody a character that is going through it in a different way, but still,
Right.
it was amazing.
Yeah. There
So
is something very, very uncanny about seeing somebody's, well, just seeing any dead body, I think, probably, but like when it's somebody that you love or somebody that you're close to, I think there is something very powerful there, that you still feel that connection. But even though, you know, like rationally, you know that they've passed away, but it's like you're still tied
There's
to.
a connection. There's just something that is here, and
right. Yeah, there's a lovely idea, yeah, which stayed with me. Yeah, that, you know, there's a line in the film where Katie asks the assistant, you know, I mean, like, hey, do you really talk to the bodies, or is that just a joke?
Yeah.
And her answer is great, because she says, like, oh, they're dead, but they're still people, you know.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny, but it's also just a really nice sentiment, you know, and that's, you know, kind of obviously one of the main themes in the film, you know. So obviously that's something that was important to you, Marilyn, like to get across, you know.
And I think Schelby portrayed it really, really well. I think, like, let's not understate her incredible talent, because I think like every single thought and feeling that goes through her mind, you can kind of feel in her eyes and on her face. And I think one of the challenges of this film was, well, we shot it in the middle of the pandemic, before there were any vaccines or anything.
Oh, really? Right.
Yeah. So it was a huge challenge. And, you know, a lot of the scenes, she's actually wearing a mask, because that was part of that was, you know, there was actually.
It works quite well, doesn't
yeah, it works quite well, because it's in the morgue, right? So you can't tell. But like, yeah, we had to like respect the 6 feet distance, or else people had to wear masks. So, you know, I think it is really, that was one of my fears, like coming into the first days of shooting, was like, okay, can we make this work with all the masks and everything?
And was it actually a morgue where you were shooting? Is that actually a morgue?
No, It's actually a funny story because it was in the middle of the pandemic. There are a couple of like abandoned hospitals in Montreal where we're based and where we shot.
Right.
And so when I was writing it, I was like, oh, it would probably be easy to shoot in one of the abandoned hospitals, right? And it's like, no, because it was COVID, it was completely, you couldn't shoot in any, like
Ah,
any
right. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
like health facility at all was completely forbidden. And so we had to be creative and find another solution. And so my production designer is actually the one who found this place, which is the kitchen basement of a hotel. So it's a kitchen.
Okay. Right. Well,
And
it's
she actually
worth it.
made it
looks
over all like
Yeah.
she made it look like a morgue. So
right. Yeah, you did a bit of production design with it,
Yeah.
obviously.
oh, she's a
Yeah.
magician. She's a
Yeah.
magician.
Yeah. No, I thought it looks great. I mean, like I thought like one of the most noticeable things with the film is that there's this real contrast, you know, in terms of the tone and the mood and the colors, like from the morgue. With then you've got these dream sequences, right?
Yeah.
And they're vibrant and colorful, you know. So there's a big contrast there visually, which is very interesting. Like, is that something that was important to you, Marilyn?
Yes. Yeah, so I really wanted to have something um you know, even like when I imagined these dream sequences, I really wanted them to be very like textural and, you know, very lush. And I wanted it to feel like it wasn't a real place, you know, like it was halfway between a kind of manufactured environment and like a Garden of Eden, but you know, a non-place and a out of space and out of time kind of feeling. And I just feel that like ghost stories are really work really well with film. And so we shot in 16mm film. We were really
Oh,
lucky.
really? Oh, right.
Yeah.
It was 16mm just for the dream sequences,
Just for those
wasn't it?
sequences. Yeah.
Okay, right, because they do have a very different look, which makes them stand out, and it looks like film. But I thought you might have just affected it afterwards. But that's
Yeah. No. We
great.
actually, it was actually quite an experience to shoot.
And I was impressed because I was like, these are so different. How is it gonna look? And finally we watched it and it was amazing.
Yeah, it's like it was my first time shooting on film since film school, and you know, it was just very nerve-wracking because I had kind of forgotten that you can't actually see your like you don't have a monitor where you can actually see what you're shooting. So a lot of it is like, well, we're hope for the best, you know.
What was it like working with the parrot? You had a parrot, right? That was a real parrot, was it?
Yeah, and the parrot was like going after, oh my gosh, after a couple of, I think after 1 hour, he wouldn't do it. He was sick of it. And he was just like in the middle of a take, he would just go flying out into like another tree or something.
God.
And
can we take
the animal wrangler had to go and get him. And it's like, okay.
Oh my God. Can we take a minute?
They say don't work with animals or kids.
Oh my God. No, can we take a minute to bow down to Mireille Metellus, who was actually like holding it? And I was like, me seriously? When I went to Marilyn, I was like, listen, I'm an actress. I am open. I can do whatever. But this,
I'm not touching that bird.
I was like, oh, like I was just seeing him like biting Mireille and Mireille going like, you know, like really like the powerful woman that like, you're going to listen to me, you know, like, and I was like, wow. Yeah, I didn't have that power in me at that moment. So I was really happy that I didn't have to hold it.
Mireille Metellus, who plays the grandmother, I actually spoke to her on the phone because I really wanted her to play the role, right? And I was like, I hope she's gonna agree to the whole bird thing, that she's not like afraid of birds or something, because a parrot is huge, right? It's like
yeah, it is.
So I was on the phone and I was like, oh, so you know, how do you feel about holding a bird like a parrot, you know? And she's like, I love birds. I have like 5 or 6 birds. And I was like, oh wow, okay.
Right, good for you.
Yeah.
I thought the whole cast was beautiful, actually. Like, I mean, the doctor and his assistant in the morgue as well. I thought they were like brilliantly cast, you know, and quite kind of you know, they're sort of comedic roles, but they're subdued, like it's dark comedy that they're playing. So did you have the actors in mind beforehand, or did you do a casting for the film? And
Um,
for Schelby as well. I mean, did you have Schelby in mind before? Did you know
for
about Schelby
Shelby,
before you?
I had her in mind when writing, and I remember I sent her the script like really early on, and I was like, I really hope she likes it, and I was super stressed out. And for Mireille Métellus, it's the actress who plays the grandmother, it was the same thing. I was like, I really, because she's a well-known actress in Montreal, well, in Canada in general.
Right. Yeah.
And I
In
was like,
another
if
film,
I
actually,
was like, it can't be anybody else than her, it has to be her. So I really hope she accepts, and she accepted.
great.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and the same for the actor who plays the doctor. He's like a well-known TV actor in
Yeah,
Montreal.
he is. I
He does a
remember.
lot of like
Yeah.
television. So I was like, if he
Okay.
wants to, if he accepts, like there will be no casting, it'll be him, and he accepted. So that was great too. So yeah, and then I think the only auditions we really had were for the morgue assistant. So
Okay. Right. Yeah. So what would you say? Would be what was the most challenging part of making the whole film? Would you say, Marilyn?
I
Was
think
it the parrot, or was there something more challenging?
the parrot was like not the hard. I think it was really like the pandemic. Honestly,
Right.
it was very stressful.
Yeah. Hard to do anything really at that time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty tough, and like having to keep up the whole distancing thing, and like
Mm.
there were so many like rules that we had to follow of like if actors were on another shoot
Yeah.
at the same time, they couldn't be like that to only they could only be less than 6 feet apart for 15 minutes. So somebody had to like time them. And it's like, yeah, oh my gosh.
Mm.
It's like, and the amount of time, like we just like putting up like the COVID shields and all that stuff. And like in post-productions having to like do special effects to remove the COVID shields. It's, oh my gosh. I hope never again. Like,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, thank God we're
yeah.
kind of coming out of it now. It sounds like really hard. I pity anyone trying to shoot in those conditions, you know. So
Yeah.
Shelby, like for you, what would you say was the most challenging part of making it from your perspective?
Oh my God. Seriously, it was like, according to me, I really just love acting. I just love being surrounded by good energies. And even if it was stressful, like Marilyn said, the whole pandemic aspect was definitely the thing that was the hardest, because, you know, like you want to be close to people. There's some scenes like where, like with the grandmother, that at some point I really wanted to be close to her. And it was great the way we played it, but still, you know, there's some like she passed away, and that's the first time in the movie, you know, when you see them next to like looking at each other, and I'm just like, I just want to hold my grandmother, I just want to have her next to me, and I just want to, and you cannot do it, not only because there's a pandemic, but like we that's the way we decided to shoot it. But yeah, I think
Mm.
that was one thing, the distance fact. And yeah, I don't know, for me, seriously, it was, the team was so great. Marilyn is like, she says like, oh yeah, it was so stressful. Like she kept, like she said it like 2 times, you know, like when she sent me the script. But Marilyn is very like, she's like, when she's on set, well, I don't know, I didn't feel it, I don't know for the other people, but like for me, she's so calm, and she's so like on top of her things, you know, like she's really confident when she's on set, you know, you really,
It's all a facade.
Uh, uh,
it
so
may be, but at the end of the day,
Inside, I'm like, ah!
that's how, so she really made me feel comfortable, you know. And she's really like, I can have access to her really easily, so whenever I had a question, I could go see her. So there was no yeah, I think that was it was a really beautiful shooting, you know. So there was nothing really I can say. And I don't know, maybe because in life I always see things in a good way, right? So
right,
Amazing.
yeah.
But I think
that's
that's
just the way
what,
I am.
yeah, it's really cool when you have like I think we had a really, well, we still have, I mean, but
Yeah.
I think we have a really good like working relationship, but also like personal relationship. So,
Yeah.
and I think it's something that I really like when you can have both, it really makes for a really I think it just
So,
makes for
so
better art too. Like
Yeah.
when you can actually kind of exchange and communicate and like on different ideas or different things that we want to bring and like, just like
so the
just like the
film, right? A lot of
parallel
it,
that pardon?
it's to do with kind of finding your own way, right? I guess in life and everything, right? And there's a moment in the film. I was kind of I'd like to get maybe Katie's take on it. Where she turns down the opportunity to take the job at her mother's hospital, which would get her out of this morgue and everything. And it seems like a logical thing to do, but then Katie decides to turn it down and she wants to stay in the morgue. So Kate. Schelby, I mean, what's your take on that? I mean, what do you think was going through Katie's head when she turns down that opportunity?
Well, I just believe she just listens to herself at that point, and I think that's one of the hardest thing to do,
Yeah.
because whenever you do that, at some point you disappoint other people.
Hmm.
And I think it's really hard, especially when you come from a family that has been working very hard to give you the best, and then they want the best for you, and she doesn't necessarily knows where she's aiming, right, where she's going, and still
Hmm.
she decided not to do it.
You kind of wants to stick it out in the morgue, like, yeah, I mean, but it does seem
So it's not so, but for me it's really powerful seeing a woman taking taking the step to go like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna listen to myself, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna refuse to do something that doesn't feel right, and even if it's really hard, and even if I don't know what will be
like.
the next step, this is what I'm doing for now, because this is what makes me feel good. And I just want to come back to something that you asked before. One of the hardest thing for me, because it's been a long time since we shot, right, and I've been doing other project since, but another thing that was really hard is that Katie, like, she doesn't really speak a lot, right? So
I
it
was gonna
was like really like acting like those silences sometimes, that was like, okay, what there's so many different directions I could take, right? So it was really hard sometimes to go like, okay, this is a direction that I'm, oh my god, I could have done this, oh, I could have done that, but I think it's all actors kind of like have that once they're done shooting a movie or a TV show, or even like a play, but yeah, I think that was one of the hardest things.
Right. So, Marilyn, what would you kind of like audiences to take away from the film after they watched it?
So to me, I think it's really about finding your own place in the world.
And
Like
it's
that's really
Right.
yeah, but it's sometimes in order to find yourself, you have to break free from what other people expect from you and
yeah.
let go of that fear of disappointing people or not living up to their standards and really blaze your own path because
Yeah.
you're the one living your own life pretty much.
So
So
where are you now in your festival run? Is it at the beginning of, is it just starting out going to festivals, or have you
I
kind of
think we're
been
about
screening?
probably at the midpoint because we
Okay,
had a premiere
right.
in March 2022. So
And
that's
what's the reaction been like to it then from audiences at film festivals so far?
Great.
well, yeah, I think so. Pretty good. I think. Well,
We
people
Right, good,
actually won
good.
we
people who
actually
hate it don't come up to me to tell me. So usually,
It's an unusual one. I mean, the film, it certainly stands out. Like
but I think
for me,
yeah,
even the title is unusual. I was going through the list of all the Oscar shorts. I was like, oh, that one sounds interesting, right?
yeah,
Um,
I get that a lot for the title,
so
and
yeah,
also
it does jump out, and it's an unusual film. I suppose even partly because you shot it on super 16 millimeter, it looks and feels different as well. Um, so I really I wish you the best of luck with it. Like I think
thank you so
I
much.
think it's very really beautiful poetic film. But what would it mean to you if to make the short list? Like it's so hard to make the final 15. But what would it mean to you to be there?
Honestly, I think it would just completely blow my mind. um, yeah, because I think when I made this film, I was in a very I don't know. I like you said, I knew it was a very unusual film and it was a very unusual type of story and unusual type of character even. And so I was just to have made it this far to me is already incredible. So you know, I guess sky is the
Right.
limit.
Well, brilliant. Look,
But you know, it's like
kudos to you.
I can't even put it into words, I think.
But I think it's
No,
gonna show an openness also, you know, like that. It's gonna show that we're like moving towards a world where people are more open to different ways of telling stories, right? And I think that's beautiful.
yeah, I mean, I admire your dedication and your willingness to do something different, you know, and to make a film that, you know, that does stand out. You know, I think it's a really beautifully made film, you know, poetic, and you know, I wish you all the best with it. I hope we'll see you there on the shortlist. So thanks so much for coming in and chatting to me. It's been really nice to get to talk to you, and best of luck with the shortlist.
Thank you so much, Vincent.
Great, take care.
Yeah, take care.